Welcome, 8th graders. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer. We're going to be diving into something way bigger than just looking at words on a page. We are going to unpack the literal power of the author's craft. We'll be unlocking the secrets behind how writers make you feel, how they sound, and how they completely direct your attention. So get ready, because you're about to discover the hidden mechanics of language that absolutely shape our world. And to set the stage, the text gives us this quote: "The tongue has the power of life and death." That's Proverbs 18:21. Just let that sink in for a second, right? It really establishes the incredibly high stakes of what we're learning today. Words aren't just, harmless little letters grouped together on a screen or a page. They are incredibly powerful tools with very real-world consequences. The words you read, and honestly, more importantly, the words you choose to use, carry just an immense amount of weight.
Okay, so here's a really quick look at our roadmap for today. First, the power of words. Then, defining the author's craft, followed by diction in action. After that, we'll look at the biblical perspective, and finally, education with morality. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the power of words.
So, when a great author writes, every single word is a completely deliberate decision. And that brings us to our absolute master key for today's lesson: diction. Diction is simply an author's specific choice of words. It's basically the tool they use to shape how their writing sounds, how it feels, and the attitude it communicates. And you might be wondering, well, why does that even matter? Well, think about it like this. Two authors could literally write about the exact same event, but just by swapping out a few words, by changing their diction, they can leave you with totally different impressions. It's like the steering wheel of the writing.
Moving on to Section 2, defining the author's craft. All right, first up under the author's craft is mood. The really crucial thing to remember here is that mood is all about how the writing feels. It's that emotional atmosphere created by the author's words. And this is huge because mood actually influences how you receive a message. Think about it. If the mood is scary and tense, your guard goes up. If it's lighthearted and fun, you relax. The mood can seriously even determine whether or not you actually believe the message the author is trying to share.
Next up, we have voice. Now, if mood is how the writing feels, voice is how the writing sounds. This is the distinct personality, the unique style of the author that just kind of shines right through the text. It's that specific magic element that makes a piece of writing actually sound like it was put together by a unique, living, breathing human being rather than, just a robot.
And the third element is tone. Tone is essentially the attitude. It's the attitude communicated by the author toward the subject they're writing about, or even toward you, the audience. And this brilliantly shows how an author can totally manipulate your focus. Like an author using a super joyful tone can instantly make you feel incredibly hopeful about a topic. But if they switch to a serious tone, well, that immediately demands your strict attention. Tone basically tells you exactly how the author feels about what they're saying.
Okay, let's look in Section 3, diction in action.
Let's see how this actually works. Take this sentence. Cold shadows crept across the empty street. Instantly, boom, you feel this gloomy, maybe even slightly creepy mood, right? But why is that? Well, it's the diction. The author didn't just say it was dark outside. They made very specific word choices. They chose cold, shadows, and empty. And those three words work together perfectly to instantly build a very specific emotional atmosphere for you as the reader. Now let's see how diction creates tone. Imagine you're reading two different reviews for the exact same movie. One reviewer calls the film a brilliant masterpiece. The other reviewer calls it a complete waste of time. By simply replacing a handful of key words, the tone shifts drastically, right? It goes from overwhelmingly positive to just harshly negative. The subject, the movie itself, didn't change at all. What changed was the attitude toward the subject. And here's a great example of voice. Imagine you're reading a memoir and you come across the phrase, "Boy, was I surprised." Using casual, everyday expressions and a little touch of humor like this creates a really conversational voice. The author's diction makes the text feel super approachable. It literally makes you feel like a good friend is just sitting right next to you, chatting over coffee. That kind of consistency in word choice is what builds the author's whole personality right there on the page.
So let's just pause for a quick second and consolidate everything you've learned. Think of this as your ultimate cheat sheet. Just remember, mood is how the writing feels, that's the emotional atmosphere. Voice is how the writing sounds, that's the personality. And tone is how the writing communicates attitude. And diction, that specific word choice, that is the absolute fuel that powers all three of those elements.
All right, Section 4. The Biblical Perspective.
So the curriculum transitions us into a much deeper moral application here. Proverbs 12:18 says, "The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." The Heroes Mark curriculum really highlights that for Christians, this is a distinct calling. Powerful writing can absolutely be used for good, or it can be used for harm. And the text really challenges you to choose. Is your diction going to pierce like a sword, or is it going to bring healing? It's a call to consciously use your words to uplift, to encourage, and to share truth with the people around you.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5. Education with morality.
The source poses a really fascinating question here. What happens when education lacks morality? I really want you to let that sink in for a second. What happens if you learn exactly how to manipulate mood, voice, and tone, but you don't actually have a moral compass to guide why you're using them? The curriculum argues it's incredibly dangerous to be intellectually smart but morally bankrupt.
The core reality presented in the text is just this. Education without morality will hurt. Because think about it. What's the point of being highly educated if you're just making choices that end up hurting yourself or others? The philosophy here is that mere intelligence without a solid moral foundation is inevitably going to lead to reckless choices. Being smart doesn't magically prevent pain, and that is exactly why the source argues that biblical morality has to be completely intertwined with your education.
But the text does offer a really beautiful alternative. Romans 8:6-7 promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. The lesson here is that when you align your education with a spiritual mindset, you find genuine clarity and comfort. A spiritual mind, according to the source, brings true peace.
So we land on this really powerful summary equation from the curriculum. Education plus biblical morality equals peace, healing, and life. You guys now completely understand the immense power of diction, mood, voice, and tone. You've got the tools of the author's craft literally right at your fingertips. So the only question left to answer is this. Armed with this knowledge and a moral compass, how will you choose to use your words today? Choose wisely. Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me.